there's this one episode of Batman the Animated Series called Over the Edge, and I had heard about it. Like, I'd never seen it. Like, I'd seen a bunch of those, first season of Batman the Animated Series. Like, loved it, saw all of it.
Me too.
This was like season 3, I think, and by the time that came around, I wasn't following it as closely.
Same here.
But I keep hearing about it.
I haven't heard you turned me on to the episode. Like you, Tom, I like know that like first season and second season like the back of my hand. But when it jumped to WB, it was like a few years after Fox, I think.
Yeah, and they had kind of at a certain point they decided to like freshen up the designs. They sort of like going in, they were trying to like replicate the look of the of like the Max Fleischer Superman cartoons from the 30s. They were trying to replicate that look, but on like a TV animation budget, and it was really like a breakthrough. And so the way they did it, like especially like looking at the opening is like pretty long, which is typical for animation because then you can eat up a bunch of minutes with this same bit you keep showing. But like the opening of Batman the Animated Series, it's just like such a classic, so great, and it's a lot of like just silhouettes. So very, very easy to draw, but also very effective and menacing and stuff. And then occasionally you'd get a flash of like a fully painted image that's like static, or like a fully painted image of like Batman's face, and then just the eyes are animated. So it's just these blobs of white.
I love it.
And then the lightning. So it's like this silhouette of Batman, and then the lightning flashes, and it's just this still like beautifully painted.
Cool.
So it's like it was just smart design. They're like, simplify the things we can simplify, and then go hard on like this stuff that we can sort of linger on. You know? So they created this like new aesthetic that was just like
looks amazing.
Yeah, really amazing. And then when they got a little further into it, they were like, we can streamline this further, because a part of their approach was also that where they had seen, and these guys were kind of like animation veterans, you know, Bruce Timm and Paul Dini and their team, like they were kind of animation veterans at this point. They'd sort of like cut their teeth on like, you know, the sort of schlock of the 80s.
Love it.
And so they realized that where a lot of these animated shows go wrong is that you have all these artists and they kind of overdo it. They like put all their technique and they make these like really amazing designs, really cool drawings. And then they get sort of outsourced and like to these like different animation studios overseas, and then they have to like crank this product out. So then what they end up doing is they end up creating like a simplified version of these complicated designs, and so you end up just kind of like with like a mishmash of kind of shit. And so they realized like what we need to do is just make like super simple, like streamline our designs and make the design really like not ornate, but like really strong and really simplified, so that it's like a no-brainer when it goes to these, you know, it gets outsourced. You know, they can cut, and so then you end up with this like really sleekly designed.
That's so
cartoon.
Clever and smart. Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, it took them sort of working within this system, you know, previously to kind of be like, oh, now we're starting to get, you know, what this whole system produces and how to optimize it. And so as the series went on, there was this kind of like second wave. I don't know if it was like season 2 or season 3 or whatever, but where they freshened up the designs and they were like, we can make these even simpler. And so they got super sharp, where all of a sudden the Joker didn't have lips anymore. He just had like a mouth with no lips, you know, because it's like drawing those lips, that's another thing that could like go wrong in the process. So we'll just get rid of the lips, you know, and just like simplify, you know, don't put a highlight on Batman's cape anymore, just make it all black. You know, like everything, it just became these areas of like either something is a line, like either something has an outline or it has a black shape and stuff. So when they made that change, I was kind of like, oh, I like the way it was before. Like, I don't like this. Now looking back, it's like, oh yeah, it gets like really sharp, really like
crisp.
You know, really crisp, and I do like it. And so this is season 3. This is, you know, in that era.
Because I didn't realize that. I checked that. I realized that after I watched the episodes, and I was watching a few other episodes around it too, and I'm like, hey, the Scarecrow looks different. Mm-hmm. Robin's looking like I'm like, what am I losing my mind? I thought I was
The Scarecrow's pretty cool in this episode, in this season 3, because he looks like Leatherface.
Totally. Super creepy. Like,
yeah. He's
not
got
that the other one was.
Right, but he's got like the zombie design, and again, there's like deep shadows. There's just these areas of like black, you know.
And like in the episode, it's so like the show, even the other seasons, it feels massive.
Yeah.
Or like Lawrence of Arabia too. It's like panned out real far. There's like huge buildings, and like you can just feel them running. It's like a heft, a weight.
It feels like a movie. And again, some of these episodes are better than like some of the actual Batman movies, you know, and like The Mask of the Phantasm was like one of the better,
so good,
one of the better Batman movies, but like even some of the episodes even more so. This is like, oh, this could be a final Batman story, you know, and when you go into it, you just assume you're just watching like, oh, this is the next development of the plot, and it's like, it just starts out with like the SWAT team are just like swarming the Batcave and like shooting at Batman and Robin, and they're shooting up that giant penny. They're shooting up Batmobiles, you know.
like Batman Year One, where I was like a perfect companion for it. And spoiler alert, the like when Batgirl falls off the building and like hits the car.
Yeah, like it's already in this kind of weird space, and it's like, okay, this, you know, this can still be walked back or whatever, and then it reaches that point.
My jaw was on the floor. I was like, this is a kid show, and I'm like, this is odd. I mean, I was getting choked up through it. I'm like, it had the stakes were so high.
Yeah, Batman's getting chased, and Batman and Robin are getting chased, and then they like push that penny, like it starts rolling.
I love that.
Kind of like the sequence in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom when he rolls that gong, and then it's like, how did we get here? And then because like Commissioner Gordon's part of the team that's chasing them, and it's like, how'd this happen? And then when, you know, pretty early in the episode, like, oh, okay, now it's like, you know.
Has the Joker ever tried to take that penny and put it on a train track in Gotham to derail it? Like,
that's awesome. Yeah, you know, all of those things, like giant dinosaur robot and the giant penny, they are all from like actual like Batman comics. So it's not like, oh, someone just came up with this idea that there'd be a penny, and it's like, oh, how did that get there? It's like all this stuff got accumulated bit by bit. So there was like an adventure that involved a giant penny. I don't know the exact details of it. I probably read it and forget, but I'm thinking like Robin is like, or Batman and Robin are like chained to the penny or whatever, and it's about to be flipped in the air. And I think it might have been like a Two-Face adventure, because like Two-Face usually it's like flipping coins and stuff, but I don't know for sure. But yeah, there was an adventure where a penny's involved, and then Batman and Robin keep it as a souvenir. So then like you see it showing up in the Batcave. Same with the dinosaur, the robot dinosaur. I think it was from like, I think maybe Catwoman had this like island that time forgot or whatever. And I mean, I could be wrong, but I feel like it was, so like he's accumulating all these things. So it is kind of cool seeing them like employed, you know.
He like the that mob boss with Kitsch, his collection, Batman's collection.
Well, it's like one of the few things, because like the continuity in those old comics is so disappointing, because it is, you know, you kind of want this sort of Marvel style continuity where like each adventure kind of piggybacks off the last one, and it was like kind of these hard resets to the status quo again and again and again. But the Batcave's kind of filling up with ephemera was a nice, you know, a nice continuity, a nice way to show the sort of the mileage, the progression, the passage of time.
Also, it kind of choked me up too when Alfred ran screen on him in that episode.
Yeah, because Commissioner Gordon has him in his sights. He's got Batman dead to rights. He's about to shoot, and again, it's this very tense kind of story in this very tense moment. And I thought in that moment, like, oh, he's not gonna be able to pull the trigger. Like it's gonna be like an internal struggle that stops him from shooting Batman. But it's like, no, it was Alfred. Alfred sort of comes in and, you know, tackles him,
grabs him, and then they make their escape in. Was this a creation of Batman Returns? The Bat Ski Boat.
The Bat Ski Boat, yeah, because
love the Bat Ski Boat,
because it's like they're running towards. It's such a great sequence, and the animators and the like the storyboard guys and the writers and stuff, they must have had so much fun putting this one together, because it is like this is what you want to see. And again, it's like it's better than most Batman comics, it's better than most Batman movies. It's just like such a great story, and told in like 20 some minutes or whatever. And so it's like, yeah, they're running towards the Batmobile, and boom, that blows up. And then it's like, yeah, they got to get in the boat and go. Now, it was not an invention. Like calling it the Bat Ski Boat. Was Batman Returns, but Batman had every manner of conveyance like in the comics for years. So there were bat boats, and of course there was like a bat boat in the Adam West one, and there were there was a bat gyro. There was like all kinds of like
bat copter.
Yeah, the bat copter.
The in Batman Returns, I thought Bat Ski Boat wasn't featured enough, so I'm glad we get some.
I agree. Like I wish there were like 10 Batman Returns. You know what I mean? Because there was all this like stuff that gets touched on. That like the bat. I want to see more Bat Ski Boat. I want to see more of the Batmobile in action.
Yes.
I want I want to see
more of the Penguin's duck.
Yeah.
It's like six-wheeled duck thing.
That's kind of how these things go, because like it's kind of different as an adult, but when you're a kid, you get to look at those toys for like a couple months before the movie comes out, and you're kind of like, I can't wait to see what that rubber duck does in the movie, or I can't wait to see this or that, and then when you get to the movie, it's like just one little.
In the Batman Returns line, I always would like the toys that weren't in the movie. I would say like, they're just out of sight. Mm-hmm. They're in the Batcave, but you just can't see them. I had this one where you pull the string, and Batman's seat like flies up in the air, attached to like a helicopter blade.
Well, Matt, if I do a Batman comic, and and we're seeing the Batcave, I'm gonna put like every Bat costume that was in those toy lines, because I love that stuff too. It's like I love the Arctic Batman. It's like yeah, and that stuff goes back to the 50s too, because like in the 50s. They had, Batman had this whole wardrobe for he had a zebra costume, he had a rainbow costume, but like the when they started coming out with the toys, they were like a little cooler. They were like a little bit cooler than what was in the 50s.
Please, Tom, will you put them in there? Because
yeah.
Me and my buddy Colin, I got him Arctic Blast Batman for his birthday, and at his parents' house, we put him in a cup of water, put him in the freezer, because we thought that's where he should go.
Right.
And then I had the Batman in his fluorescent yellow suit. Mm-hmm. I took him into the swimming pool. It was where he had like his little like floating.
Yeah, it was like a aquatic Batman.
So we always thought we should put Batman with his special suits where he belongs. Mm-hmm. Like return him to the Arctic.
They had like it was one of those like 90s Batman toys. I think like a little after that stuff, but it was like Batman with like wings. So he's got his cape and it's like cloth, but then he can do this.
That is amazing. Mm-hmm. Oh God, I think we might have had him too.
Yeah.
In those when they do the toy commercials, I always thought the ones that are featured in the commercial were like extra special. Yeah. It's like Air Attack Batman was shown in the commercial with the line, so he got front and center. I'm like,
this like Batman animated episode, like I could only imagine like watching it as it was on and being like, oh, is this the final episode?
I thought it was,
because there's like a couple episodes after it, but it's like, is this the final one?
Me too, Tom. I thought that. I'm like, is this the end of the show?
Are we wrapping
this thing's up?
Yeah.
And I was starting to get choked up.
And yeah, it is kind of what you want from one of those stories where it's like, there's some stakes, there's some like shocks, and then how like everybody sort of has their moment too, like Alfred comes in, and then they're making their getaway, and then they're getting chased by like the police boat or whatever, and then he's there with Robin, like Tim Drake Robin, who was like the Robin of the comics at that time, and then Nightwing shows up. Dick Grayson's sort of grown up identity comes in
on a sick jet ski.
Yeah, helps them out. So it's everybody's joining in. Gordon, like now that he's like completely turned against Batman, he's doing that thing that's like in like RoboCop movies and stuff, where it's like or like the Dirty Dozen, where he's gonna like recruit from among the bad guys. So he goes in, and you just see this guy in his like jail cell in silhouette, and he's like bald or whatever. And it's like, who is that? And I was thinking like, oh, is that Bane? And then it's like, yes. It's Bane. And yeah.
And then I got choked up again too when he's like, I trusted you, I worked with you, and I was like, oh my God.
It was rough.
It was fucking rough.
Yeah, and it's and it is kind of like, oh well, what would make Commissioner Gordon turn against Batman? And it's like, well, there's something, that'll do it.
That'll do the trick.
And when he's fighting Bane, it's like, Bane is, that's the guy. Like that's the guy who breaks the Batman. You know, like they haven't come up with like a better. You know, like in the '90s, they were coming up with like, okay, who's the guy who's gonna decimate your superhero? So you had Doomsday for Superman. He kills Superman, and then you have Bane. You know, these sort of '90s like roided out. You know,
Attitude Era wrestlers.
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Big Van Vader.
So Bane and Bane, you know, again, he was kind of kitschy at the time, and like as kids we were into all that stuff, but like the grown-ups were kind of like, that's you know, that's trash for the kids. But now he's become this sort of respected part of the part of the mythos, and that's one thing I'll have to let you borrow to read. Is there was like a Batman two-parter comic, Blind Justice. It was a comic written by Sam Hamm. So it's like the Batman movie was coming out, written by Sam Hamm. So it's like, let's get Sam Hamm to write some comics. So he writes this comic. It's really good, but it has like a proto Bane. Like it's Bane before Bane. It's this character before Bane. And when Bane came out, I thought like, oh, it's that character from Blind Justice. But it was like, okay, you know, we're really onto something here. Let's, you know, come, you know. So Bane is kind of this like carbon copy of the character that was in there.
Bane always reminds me of the wrestler Big Van Vader.
Okay.
When you take a when you see him,
yeah, we'll have to flash a picture
of him, and he always would do like, I think like this. Mm-hmm. It's Vader time.
Having Batman fight Bane, and I think somebody gets thrown into the bat signal at some point, like either Batman or Bane gets thrown, but it's like this great fight, you know, fight to the death between the two of them, and Batman's taken no prisoners, and I would say that episode of the animated series is like a better Batman movie than the third Christian Bale movie. Like, you know, the way, you know, the way it's staged and stuff is so great.
And we realized that Barbara had been sprayed. Well, we got the Scarecrow got her.
Yeah, because it's like she's about to bust the Scarecrow, and then he like blasts her, and she gets, you know, pushed off the building. Yeah, falls on the hood of Jim Gordon's car as he's driving. It's like the opening of not Die Hard, of Lethal Weapon, except even worse. You know, like if she showed up on your car while you're driving it, you know, as opposed to just falling on the car. And then it sort of escalates to like Batman falling off this building, you know, to his death. And then that's when Barbara Gordon wakes up, and you realize, and you find out that all of this was this like fever dream or this hallucination she was having from her encounter with the Scarecrow. So like everything up to like where she meets the Scarecrow, he like hits her with his fear gas, and then everything from that point on is like this hallucination she's having.
And it doesn't feel like usually like the dream stuff always feels like a cheat.
Yeah, you hate it. You're like, oh fuck this.
Like Newhart or whatever.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you're right. I didn't feel that with this either. It was like, oh, cool. You know, because it is part. It wasn't just like some random dream. Like it was, you know, part of the story, and that like, you know, everything is so bleak and so dark, and then she wakes up in this kind of like nurturing, loving situation with all those, where like, you know, Batman's there and he's like, oh, are you okay? You know, and Alfred and everybody, like they're all kind, you know, like Dorothy and Wizard of Oz. But yeah, she like wakes up, and yeah, it's like everything you watched wasn't a big waste of your time. It was, and like she had to sort of work her way through those toxins or whatever.
Tom, this is my favorite Batman movie. This episode.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that's cool.
I was like, when she died, I was like, they're gonna have her in the hospital, or like there's no way. And then
it's a shocker.
I was shocked, Tom. I haven't been shocked by a piece of media in a while, and this like fucking shocked me.
Well, I'm glad you didn't read the book. Like, it's on HBO Max, and when you click on the episode, like the way the episode proceeds, you feel like you're just like watching the thing. But then the blurb for the episode is like, Batgirl, while in a deep sleep caused by the Scarecrow.
I totally did.
Yeah, it kind of like right off the bat, it tells you that this is, you know, like a dream. You know? So, but it still worked.
Good thing I can't read.
Yeah,
it's a blessing.
Finally, yeah, you've been telling me that it's a blessing, and now it finally is. But then there's like an extra added bit to the end, because then she realizes through the journey of this dream that, you know, her subconscious is trying to tell her something. She needs to tell her dad that she's Batgirl, And so then she starts to tell him, and then he kind of stops her and says, like, I don't know what you're about to tell me, but, you know, I trust you and everything's okay. You don't have to, you know, if it's what you're doing, you know, if this is a decision you made, you know, and gives her a big, and so it's like really nice. And it also, it kind of underscores that, like, this was a dream, like, it's the Scarecrow, so this dream was based on her fears. So this isn't really how Commissioner Gordon would react to the situation. This is how she imagines he would, or her fears, this worst case scenario of how he would react. And that, you know, the sense you get from their conversation is that he kind of does know. Like, he does know, and he's not. So it's like, you know, it's like, oh yeah, this, and it's this big weight off her chest to finally have this conversation with her dad, or at least, you know, have and know that, like, all this stuff is just baggage that she's been carrying because she's been holding back this secret from her dad, you know.
Batgirl's a great character.
Yeah.
Like, I know we were talking about, you were recommending me some Batman comics. Any good Batgirl?
Yeah, I mean, Batgirl, like...
I love your Batgirl with BMX bike and...
Well, that's the thing. I love Batgirl, too, and I wanted to do some cool stuff with Batgirl. I mean, and when you watch, like, the Adam West Batman, like, when Batgirl shows up, it is a breath of fresh air. Like, it is kind of fun when she shows up. And you know, it's unfortunate that she sort of shows up just as, like, the budgets are being gutted out of the show. You know?
Like, I went down a rabbit... I'm gonna... Of course, I'm vibing on Batman the Animated Series, so I'm gonna, like...
Yeah. Well, most of the great Batgirl stories are Batman the Animated Series, cartoons, and then also comics. They had, like, a lot of comics of that era, and there's a lot of... And sometimes it would be Bruce Timm and Paul Dini working on them, but, like, Batgirl's handled really well in there.
There's the episode, a couple episodes, like, after I watched that one in season 3, I watched a couple other ones, like, off the jump, and there was one, like, where there was, like, an arsonist, and he was obsessed with this, like, pop star, and Batgirl shows up to save the pop star, but she was up in the, Bruce Wayne was watching the concert from, like, the good seats in the front, and Batgirl had a James Bond one-liner. She's like, it pays to be in the cheap seats.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I was like...
Yeah, like...
I was like,
it is,
this is good. This is...
When you say that, like, yeah, it is, like, all the best... you know, Batgirl stories that I've read were, like, part of the animated series. She's, like, introduced in the TV show, in the Adam West TV show, before she is in the comics. So it's like they're putting her in the show, so then they add her to the comics. And so it's like...
Was Harley Quinn and Bane a creation of the show?
Bane was a creation of the comics. Harley Quinn was a creation of the show. But yeah, Batgirl was a creation of the Adam West show. And then she shows up in the comics. So it's like those 60s... Batman comics, so it's like Carmine Infantino art, you know, sometimes maybe like a Gil Kane or like a Neil Adams or something, like, you know, so there's like some good art, but I don't remember any standout, like, great stories or anything from that era. And then, like, by the time you start getting into the 70s and 80s, the writers kind of have a contempt for Batgirl because they see her as this kind of, like, cheesy thing that's, like, sort of added, you know, for the TV show. So, you know, so they want to, like, Robin is bad enough. Like, they kind of want to put Robin out of the picture too, but, you know, they'll handle Robin under protest. But Batgirl, they won't sit still for. And so then, you know, and then Alan Moore does a story where he kind of, like, permanently sidelines Batgirl to where Batgirl becomes, like, a completely different character. And then, so then, like, we don't have Batgirl for, like, years and years, except when you know, she becomes a new character called Oracle, who's kind of this, like, computer whiz, but she's not Batgirl. It's like she's not wearing the Batgirl costume. She's not going into Batgirl adventures. She's more of, like, the support staff, you know, like this computer whiz, like the queen of cyberspace or whatever. But then it's like you get the animated series, you get a continuity restart, and it's like all of a sudden we got Batgirl back. So then that was when you start getting some good, you know, some good Batgirl stories.
Yeah, like, I can't believe I missed out on this era of the Batman the Animated Series.
Yeah, and you know what? It's really unfortunate that yeah, it's like if you like Batgirl, there's kind of this, like, little oasis that's like the animated series universe, and then we had a Batgirl movie coming our way. We were this close. We're about to get a Batgirl movie, and then it's been deleted due to corporate greed.
Yeah,
you know?
fuck you,
capitalist pigs. So
Brendan
like,
Fraser was in it.
yeah, it's like, man, you know, and
was Michael Keaton in it?
Michael Keaton was going to be in it. Like, who knows when we're ever going to see a Batgirl movie again?
Batgirl?
Maybe never. I don't know.
So a new person.
Yeah, it would have to be like somebody new. You know, that the role sort of demands it. You know,
kind of like Michael Keaton when he stepped into Batman.
Yeah, or Yvonne Craig when she became Batgirl.
Yeah,
you know? Like, but yeah, it was such a shame. And hopefully something's going to happen that's going to revert. Like, you know, somebody. You know,
somebody have it somewhere.
Well, if the corporate bigwigs at Warner, whatever this new hybrid monstrosity that's resulted of this merger, if everybody followed their orders, this thing has been erased from existence. Every single copy deleted. The hope is that somebody disobeyed, some whistleblower or something like that. Somebody went and saved it, hid it away. And when cooler heads prevail, when the current regime gets overthrown within Warner Discovery or whatever, that this thing will be able to resurface, and we can actually like see this, and Batgirl can finally get a movie. Because I guarantee you, like, we might never, if this one doesn't go through, we might never see a Batgirl movie. Because think about how long it took to get to that point, and I think a lot of people do, and a lot of people in these sort of management roles think of Batgirl as just this sort of, bullshit thing. But it's like, yeah, I'm a fan. I'm a fan. Yeah, exactly. We deserve a Batgirl. Yeah.
Like, of course, I can't believe it, Tom. The movie it's completed and they're fucking.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost completed. It was it's like the 1 yard line or whatever. They just had to do a little bit of this and that, and then they're like, fuck it, delete it. When I did Superpowers, I was like, I got some Batgirl ideas. Like,
yes.
I wanted to do some stuff with Batgirl, and I had a lot of fun working with Batgirl, and that is a character I would love to sort of revisit and go back to. So.
It pumped me up seeing her on the
BMX
bike was like, I was
perfect. From day one, she's sort of associated with a motorcycle. Like in the Adam West show, she's on a motorcycle and stuff, and it's like doing superpowers. It's kind of like, it's Justice League with this like nostalgic 80s vibe. What's the nostalgic 80s thing to ride? And it's like a BMX bike. Yeah.
We have to cover some point
like a Huffy,
Rad, the BMX Lori Loughlin BMX bike movie, or Gleaming the Cube with Christian Slater.
Rad with Talia Shire. Like Talia Shire, like that's her movie. Like she produced it and stars as the mom in it, but that's her movie.
We have to cover it on the show. Rad.
We'll do it. I love that movie. Like,
me too.
That was one of those VHS rentals that we would just rent again and again.
Same with like I said, Gleaming the anything skating or biking.
Yeah, I remember Gleaming the Cube, but it wasn't like it didn't hit the same chord with us that like in my family that Rad did. Yeah,
I can't wait. Total Recall gets rad.
Gets totally
rad. It's one of my favorite Batman moments was this episode.
Yeah, really great. Really fun to check it out.
I missed this season because, you know what?
There's other good stuff in that season, too.
I think I was just anti-WB.
Right, you're like, I don't like this. Now it's a good time to be anti-WB with like all the bullshit they've been pulling lately,
Yeah, I was just like, I'm not watching anything on the WB. I didn't even know what was on there. I was avoiding it.
No, I know what you mean. Yeah,
this fucking corporate pigs and Warner Brothers.
What are you gonna do? I mean, it's just a big lesson. Like, okay, Total Recall viewers, free your minds. Like, it's time to say fuck you to all of these corporations and say like fuck you, Warner Brothers. If we are gonna invest like our lives and our hearts into this sort of pop culture kind of stuff, it's owned and operated by people who don't give a shit, and they'll take a big steam and shit on us, and so we got to just like withdraw our dollars. We got to just stop everything. Like let's start getting into just purely public domain things. So, double down on like the Knights of Arthur, double down on Zorro, Sherlock Holmes, and just, fuck Batman, fuck Superman, fuck Wonder Woman, and like, okay, this is Warner, all that stuff. Like, just say goodbye to all of it. We don't need it. We're gonna start talking about Hercules and stuff, and we're gonna talk about Thor. That's not the Marvel Thor. Like, we're gonna, it's like time to pull the plug. Time to stop all of the nonsense.
We love Night of the Living Dead. Wish that would not be the public domain. Wish it would. George Romero would have maintained ownership.
Right.
Of that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's exactly it, though. Like all this corporate stuff. It's never like. It's never the people who create this stuff that end up with it.
Yeah.
It's like it always ends up in the hands of equity of what are they called? Private equity firms. Who are just like slash and burn.
Yeah, it always ends up in the hands of Michael Douglas from Gordon
Gekko character. Not if only it ended up owned by Michael Douglas. So next week we're reviewing the Epic of Gilgamesh. You know what I mean? Like we're, Total Recall, public domain theater.
Well, it's like I can't wait till we cover the classic Warner Brothers picture, Never-Ending Story.
Yeah, right. So I'm Tom Scioli, author of I Am Stan, a graphic biography of the legendary Stan Lee.
I'm Matt Zeoli.
And Saturday, May 6th is Free Comic Book Day. And there's going to be a Free Comic Book Day edition of I Am Stan. It's an excerpt of the larger book, which will be coming out in September. But on Free Comic Book Day, you'll get like a little sample of it. And I'll be making an appearance on Free Comic Book Day, Saturday, May 6th, at Phantom of the Attic Comics Oakland in Pittsburgh from 1:30 till 4. So I hope to see you there.
Follow the show on Instagram at total_recall_show.
And follow me on Twitter at Tom Scioli. Follow me on Instagram at Tom_Scioli. And check out my Patreon. Go to patreon.com, search Tom Scioli.
If you're the executive that deleted Batgirl, you can chew the bark off my big fat log.
You know what? I'm going to go one better. This is what I'm saying to you who did that. Shame on you. You should be disgusted with yourself. Popeye says you should be disgustipated with yourself.
If you're a Warner exec that wants to work with us, our contact information is in the show notes, below. So if you want to hire us, if you deleted Batgirl, all that stuff about shaming, and if you want to hire us, check the contacts in the show.
And there's a pre-order link to I Am Stan in the show notes below.